Kitakayo All my relations, that's all of you. All 32 of you. Hey, how you doing? This is Mark Still, and I am proceeding with my conversations about how to heal a broken America. With me today is a man who insists that the only face you see is my smiling face. So, of course, I honor that. His name is Daniel. He is of mixed ethnicity, mixed culture. And as always, well, first of all, want to say hi, Dan?
Good evening.
There we go. So, the question is, as always, in How to Heal a Broken America, what have we been doing right so far? What have we been doing wrong? And how can we course correct? And so I throw it on over to Dan.
Well, I think one of the first things we've done right is we have elevated some of the issues that have been going on for a millennium with Americans. And, you know, we talk about Americans, one of the unfortunate things is it's almost like you have to take sides. If you're an American, you have to be either a Democrat or Republican. You have to be an Eagles fan or a Dallas Cowboy fan. You have to be, you know, left or right. You can't be more central. And, you know, to me, you know, being an American, there's a patriotic part, there's a civic part, and Americans, they live every day. Where in politics, Democrats and Republicans come out one day a year, and that's called Election Day. And the rest of the year, we're Americans. And we've seemed to have forgotten that. We've seemed to polarize everything in Washington. It's always the Democrats against the Republicans. There's always this hard line, one way or the highway. We're on the precipice right now of another stimulus bill, and one side's tying it to other things, pork, to vote by mail, to other things other than the stimulus. And it comes down to these special interests. And I think when we come together as Americans, and most people live in the middle. There is the far left and the far right. I don't ascribe to either. I think there's problems on both sides. But I'd say a good 75 to 80% of Americans are confused and live in the middle. And take a look at both sides and shake their heads and just have no idea how to relate to these people. It just doesn't make any sense. I think when you talk to most people in a man in the street type attitude, you find out that they have more of a centrific attitude. And they take a look at some of the things that are going on nationally, and of course they're sensationalized, they're publicized. And I think one of the things that's wrong with America, kind of funny we're doing it in a public social media platform, but social media, it's out there, and everybody has an opportunity, and everybody has an opinion, and everybody has a soundbite. And if you go by, you know, getting your news from Facebook or Instagram or all these other places, you're kind of drawn into these little catchphrases, and it's not the entire story. So even though we're doing this in a social media setting, I think that's one of the things we're doing wrong. That, you know, it's great to have the opportunity, but, you know, you talk about fact checking, you talk about statistics, you talk about somebody's opinion. If it's not based in fact, that's a problem. And there's so much of it out there. People start to, you know, grab a hold of it and believe it, and next thing you know, there's a runaway train. So I think that's one of the things we're doing wrong, is that, you know, these platforms were not made for just people to opine about their specific opinion. It's more, if we get back to the center and the crux of things and what is really going on, I think we have a better chance of fixing it. Did I answer your question a little bit?
Right. You and I are exactly on we're not even on the same page, we're on the same punctuation mark on the same page.
Okay, well, thank you.
Well, no, thank you. But there's so few of us doing that. It's funny that you mentioned you have to choose a side, because when I was growing up, and you could probably give credence to that, one of the they would call it a meme these days, but one of the biggest sayings about politics back then, there's not a dime's worth of difference between the left and the right, between the Democrats and the Republicans. Actually, I don't think left and right was even used that much. It was more like Democrats and Republicans. And it was always, never a nickel, never a quarter, never a penny. It's always a dime's worth. There's not a dime's worth of difference. And I took some comfort in that. I mean, at first when I heard that, Dan, it's like, nah, that can't be. There's got to be a difference. Because my dad, very much Republican, he even ran for freeholder in Burlington County. My mom, very much Democrat. My dad, very much Protestant. My mom, very much Catholic. Night and day in many ways. And I don't know, I look back on that now about not a dime's worth of difference, and number one, it's right, and number one, it makes me nostalgic. That when it came right down to it, they really had the same values. They expressed those values differently. Maybe the means to the ends were pursued differently, but still the same values, of family and of country, of God. God was a thing back when we were kids.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But these days, oh my gosh, I mean, there's a chasm between the left and the right.
Well, it's almost like the Hatwrights and McCoys. It's like this
Hatfields.
Hatfields. Hatfields? No, Hatfields and McCoys. Well, who are the people?
I knew them. I had lunch with them one day.
So they're feuding, and sometimes they forget what they're fighting about, but we're fighting about it because that's what we do. Interesting. I always tell people a little nugget, little takeaway. You know the definition of politics?
Go ahead. What?
Poly means many, and ticks are blood-sucking little animals. So I kind of say that in jest, but
it's not.
it's almost spot on. I got to give credit to the guy who taught me that. His name was Charlie Tremendous Jones. He was a motivational speaker, awesome guy, and I'll never forget that. We were in Atlantic City, and he asked the question, anybody know the definition of politics? And he hit us with that, and it's spot on. Years ago, Rush Limbaugh had a talk radio show.
Huh.
And one of the things he said that I really agreed with was that it's not the Democrats and it's not the Republicans, it's the bureaucrats. It's the people in Washington that teach these people, once they get elected, where the free chicken dinners are, and where the free drinks are, and where the lobbyists live, and how to get funding. And once they get into that whole culture, I don't care if you're the best person in the world, there's an opportunity for corruption. And not just taking bribes and things like that. There's moral corruption. There's decay. You see really good people that go into these high offices of esteem, and you read about them and say, what the heck happened? How did they get into these situations? And you just shake your head. And it's pervasive. It's almost like there's this disease in Washington that it's worse than the coronavirus. That it is so contagious, and it is so alluring.
But it's not just Washington.
It is not. We use Washington as a big example, but it trickles all the way down to the local levels.
I'll give you an example of my dad. When he ran for freeholder, this was before I was born. I may have been in the womb. But the story that he told me, and that I've heard verified from various sources, is that my dad instilled, if you allow me to say that, instilled a sense of idealism in me. And 56 years old, I still have that. In fact, I think my idealism gets stronger as I get older. So his idea of being freeholder, to take it down to a meme, was he was going to name names. He was going to say, these are the people that are doing the wrong things, and this is how I'm going to improve on it. It wasn't just this isn't working, but the guy who's doing this, right? It isn't working because this guy is behind it. And back then it was all guys, of course, right? True. So he was going to name names. And the Burlington County, I don't know, is there a board of freeholders?
Sure.
Okay, so the Burlington County Board of Freeholders called him in. From what I understand, it was sort of like, we need you here either tonight or tomorrow night. And he went in, and they said you have to change your campaign. You have to not name names. You have to not just back off from that, but you have to publicly say, sorry, I was wrong. It's going off in the wrong direction. What I meant to say was, my dad refused to budge, so they refused to support him. He was no longer running for freeholder after that.
Yeah. And interesting you mentioned freeholders, because I understand in Burlington County that they're going to be changed. They're going to change the name of freeholders, because freeholders were free landowners going back to slavery.
Okay.
So they want to call them commissioners now.
Okay.
So they're going to change that whole thing of freeholders. I never thought of a freeholder as a landowner. I thought of him as an elected official that did this job.
I always thought of freeholder as something that was specific to New Jersey.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there are commissioners and other names for them in other states, but as far as I knew, it was just a Jersey thing.
We jokingly called them freeloaders. But, they serve on the county government. But that's one of the things out of this whole, I guess, social justice movement that people have looked into and said, this is where the word came from, and maybe we should reconsider. This is not just an elected official, but someone who was a free landowner. So from what I understand, they haven't done it yet, but they're going to switch it up and go to commissioner.
Slippery slope.
It is. And who do you pick and choose what names you change? How do you change it? Who picks and chooses what things gets changed? What things get changed? But for instance, I went to Pennsauken High School. We were always the Pennsauken Indians.
Huh? I
always thought of the Lenni Lenape Indians as noble people who lived in Pennsauken. The word Pennsauken actually means tobacco pouch. It comes from Lenni Lenape.
Right.
A lot of people think it means Penn's hawking ground from William Penn, but it doesn't. But the Lenni Lenape were proud people, and that
if I may, they are proud people.
They are proud people. They're extremely proud people. And to name the mascot or the team after the Indians, I think that's one of the highest tributes. And to take that away just because somebody or some people think that that's a bad idea, it's not. And the context of which it was used, I never thought it derogatorily.
Right.
I always thought that it was the proud people who were indigenous to that town. And it's mind-boggling that they can even consider doing that. And it's a real thing. You go to Syracuse University. Syracuse University used to be called the Orange Men. Well, that was sexist. So now they're just called the Orange. So we're kind of emulsifying and homogenizing everything so it's more vanilla. There is no flavor. There is no opportunity to be different. And I think that's what makes America great. That we are different, and realizing and understanding the differences is how we heal America. We understand we're all not the same. We do have differences, and embracing those differences and finding some common ground. If I was in charge, I would form a blue ribbon committee. I would use Camp David, which hasn't been used since the Middle East peace talks. It's still a place. And get the best and the brightest. College professors, poets, people who work in civil rights, law enforcement, judges, retired people from all walks of life, and give them one task. How do we fix this problem? We sent the men to the moon. We didn't go to Congress and say, all right, John F. Kennedy wants to get to the moon. No, we formed an organization called NASA. And we got the best and the brightest minds, the best physicists, the best chemists, the best engineers, the best rocket scientists. And they had a problem. How do we get to the moon and back? My dad actually helped work on that project. He worked on the project to get the man to the moon. So they took people from all walks of life and they gave them a task. And they did it. Mission accomplished. Amazing. So we have all this talent. You form a blue ribbon committee, you sequester these people in Camp David, and have them come out with a couple scenarios on how to get this done. Don't rely on the politicians to figure it out. It's like the pandemic. We have the best and the brightest college professors, pharmacologists, nurse practitioners, medical people of all walks of life. Use their talent. Figure it out. Use the model of getting a man on the moon as a model of fixing America.
I like it. All I can say to that is, unfortunately, there's so much political pressure these days to pick a side, whereas I don't believe in sides. I don't think you believe in sides.
No, I don't.
If you got 100 people living on this street, you're going to get 100 different sides, if you will, 100 different opinions, 100 different ways about doing things. So I watch Larry Elder a lot. I've mentioned him here. I've mentioned him to you. Elder's a black libertarian, and his latest video was he had all these quotes that were said by these acclaimed individuals. He had Martin Luther King. He had Andrew Young. He had Franklin Roosevelt. He had Harry Truman. A few others. And all these people that said words that were, like Martin Luther King said something, a homosexual boy wrote to him and asked him, "What do I do?" basically. And Martin Luther King, what he said, if he had said it today, oh my goodness, it would have jumped all over him. And things that Andrew Young said about Koreans who ran shops, grocery stores in his neighborhood. Oh my gosh, they jump all over him. So if you're going to go with this cancel culture, and you're going to go around picking all these things that, if taken in the context today, or even taken in the context back then, could offend somebody, what do we have left? I have said to you, and I have said to many people, and it's one of my guiding principles of life right now. If you go around finding offense with things that people say and do, eventually the field is going to get so narrow. If it were just me going around finding offense with things, and you and I are simpatico and we're the best of buds, and then one day you say something like, "Did he really just say that?" And then I challenge you on it, and you say, "Yeah, I just said that," and you don't want to budge, and I don't want to budge, and all of a sudden you are now off the list, and my accepted culture, my accepted people has gotten narrow. Now we expand that by millions of people. Expand it by there's an entire political movement right now about not causing offense to people, and I think it's absolutely absurd, because you cannot avoid offending people. The second I open my mouth, I'm going to risk offending you. I could be offending you right now, and you could ask me a question and I'm not going to say anything, and that could offend you. So this group that is saying, take away that Orangeman, take away Pennsauken, take away Indian Mills.
Yeah,
right?
another example. Yeah.
Because what do they call that now? That's a town in Billington County.
Well, it's by Pemberton, but it's still called Indian Mills.
There was another town that changed its name, but the locals still call it that. It's out by Medford.
It could be Indian Mills.
But they gave it a different name. I think they actually gave it a Lenape name. But the thing is, if you have this group that says, and I've even seen this. I've even seen people from the group saying, "Yeah, blah, 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 this is wrong. We should be against this." And then somebody from the group says something that the other people in the group think is wrong, and all of a sudden that group just lost a member.
And they get ostracized.
And then the group gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and that, I'm telling everybody, is inevitable. You're going to get such a small group, and then you're going to get groups that are hanging on with absolute tenacity, and they're going to go to war. They're going to pick up weapons, and they're going to go to war.
I hope that never happens. I mean, that's apocalyptic, but it's a possibility.
Unless people listen to you and me and actually sit down and find the courage to speak. Okay, here's another one for you. Right now, I'm in the midst of renewing my license. Okay, so I've been taking all these online courses. And there was one that I took a couple of days ago that actually gave me a bunch of hope. It was about ethics. And that you can't ostracize anybody because they have their own cultural viewpoint. And the culture could be their family, could be their neighborhood, could be their country, their city, their skin color. But they're all valid, which is what I've been saying all along. But another thing that the author of this article noted, that if the political pressure is so great that if you speak up, you could lose your job, you lose your license, lose your reputation, you're not going to speak up.
No, I mean, ethics is what you do when there's nobody watching. That's what I've always been told. It's kind of your own moral compass. And I have a son who works for a major corporation, and during one of the meetings, they were discussing the whole social justice thing and Black Lives Matter. And this gentleman, he comes from a very fundamental Christian background,
Right.
and he has very strong views on right to life and abortion and subjects like that. And it was a conference call, and someone referenced Black Lives Matter, and from this gentleman's perspective, and he was talking about unborn babies. He wasn't talking about anything else. He said, in his opinion, that all lives matter. And he got fired on the spot. No questions asked. He didn't get a chance to explain himself. He didn't get a chance. He was absolutely, after a 20-year career with this company, let go on the spot.
You mean somebody else in the conference, that boss said, you're fired, you're gone?
Fired. You're done. We do not stand for that type of, an opinion. And the example was, it's like if you go to a birthday party and you're singing happy birthday to somebody and you stand up and say, well, I have a birthday too. Well, that's not what he was saying.
Huh.
He was just giving a reference to life in general. That there's a sanctity to it, and it's all reverent. But it got taken out of context, and he didn't even get a chance to explain himself or defend himself. He was just gone, on the spot. It was not tolerated by this company, and it never will be.
You want to know why I'm laughing? Because whoever the boss was in that company, whoever made that decision, and whoever felt comfortable making that decision, has been in that position for a long time. Has been with that
Sure.
company for a long time.
Sure.
So I will bet you any amount of money that he used to have the same opinion, or at least the same public opinion.
It's quite possible, but I'm just saying that, this is the extent that we've gone to. That, even saying something that may be construed as being not congruent with that cause can cause you to get fired from a very good job and a wonderful career. So it's kind of sad that we become this sensitive, that we can't sit down and just have a conversation about, okay, why did you say that? What did you mean by that? Or could you rephrase that? Not, you're done.
I don't think sensitivity is the right word. And I'm as I was doing this, I was trying to think of what the right word is. Intolerance certainly comes to mind. I've said this many times, and I've been challenged on this, but I stand by it. It's fear. It's fear that somebody else could have a different opinion, and that somehow they would take ascendancy. Somehow they would have some sort of power over you. And more than that, the fear is, okay, let's take fear down to its most primitive, its most basic, its most fundamental. If I'm afraid of you, for whatever reason, I'm afraid that your beliefs will invalidate mine. That somewhere along the way, I made a wrong choice, and I've been compounding that wrong choice, and if you have an opinion that's contrary to mine, you're actually saying to me, you made a bunch of wrong choices. You made a bunch of wrong turns, Mark. You're wrong. Your whole life is a mess. You're a complete mess. You're trash. You should be taken out to the garbage pile. That's none of that's rational, mind you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But that's what fear ultimately comes down to, because when you're not fearful, you're confident of what you believe. You're confident where you stand. You're confident of what you know to be right and wrong. And you're also confident, and I've found this out about true confidence, people that have absolute true confidence, is that they're not afraid to be wrong. They're not afraid to learn. They're not afraid to be a little bit wiser, a little bit stronger tomorrow than they are today. But if you are afraid to be stronger tomorrow, that's not confidence.
That's how you learn.
No. And I think all these people right now that are firing your son's colleague and are pulling down statues and yelling and demanding justice right here, right now, their idea of justice, they're not confident. I think they're scared silly. And I know that they're causing other people to be scared silly, which is why they're being quiet. I've talked to many people from many different backgrounds, of many different skin tones, who, for want of a better word, have some very conservative beliefs. But are they going to publicly say it?
Probably not. No.
So, is there anything else that we should say to wrap this up?
I think it's a very important discussion. Just to kind of circle back, that I truly believe that most Americans tend to be more in the middle. They want to.
All right. So how do we reach out to those people in the middle? How do we get to say to them, it's safe, even though it may not be?
I mean, they have a voice, but right now they're in a position they got to pick one side or the other, and I think there's more people actually in the middle than on both of the other sides.
Yeah, I agree.
And unfortunately, those people tend to be a little shyer. They're not blessed with the loudest voice. They don't shout from the mountaintops like the other sides, and quite frankly, so they think that they are less than good communicators. And there might be a fear factor that they're going to be ostracized by both sides, like the third man in a hockey fight.
Okay.
The third man in a hockey fight gets beat with both sticks.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of people are. They're kind of waiting on the sidelines. They have strong opinions, but they're a little bit reluctant to actually voice those opinions because of retribution.
Is there anything that we can do, we being you and me, or anybody else watching this video, to let those other people know that if you have that strong opinion, you really should voice it?
Yeah, I don't think it's time for more signs or flags or banners or light bulbs or whatever you want to do to kind of get the word out. But there is that underlying. I think it's 75 to 80% of the people that kind of have that opinion. Now, I'm not suggesting that we adopt some type of a symbol, because we don't need any more symbols. We have plenty of symbols.
Frog?
Whatever.
That was a bad joke.
A bad joke.
I'm known for those.
Okay.
Where was I going to go with this?
You were saying, how to get the people in the middle a little bit more engaged.
Well,
I think by definition, being in the middle, they are a little more silent. They're not as vocal.
Oh, there you go. So the people who are being vocal,
Yes.
say the 2,000 in Portland or Seattle or where have you, that's a lot of people to be facing down, and a lot of people to be yelling at you. But still, it's 2,000 people. even in the context of even this small town of Palmyra, where we're filming this right now. It's really not that many.
No.
And then you look into Burlington County, you look into New Jersey, it's really not that many. And people, I believe, rightly claim that the media are very manipulative and very agenda-oriented and trying to skew the narrative. But again, not that many people. So if it's really a strength in numbers, the strength is with us in the middle.
And we need those people in the middle to come together and basically say, you know, we have a viewpoint too. And I don't know who is the spokesperson for that group in the middle. It's not you or I, but you know, there's got to be someone that can take on that role and you know, come out and say and have the, you know, the guts to say it. You know, we live in the middle. And
Not that I have the ambition or the ego, but if nobody else would step up to do it, I absolutely would, because somebody has to.
yeah, I think that's the common ground that we can agree on.
Mm.
And I hope this was helpful.
Absolutely.
Insightful.
So the idea of all these conversations, my good friends, is to realize that you are not alone, and if you're on the extreme, to realize that there are a great many people in the middle that really want to be heard. And just because they have a different opinion doesn't mean that they're bad people. We really need to explore those opinions. We need to explore each other. So I am grateful for
Thank you for having me.
Daniel being here with his multicultural perspective, and as always, peace four fingers. I will talk to you soon. Please, if you want to do this, hit me up somehow. Message me, text me. If you know my number, call me. Go out to your front porch and yell my name, and I'll make this happen, that we can have this conversation. So, talk to you later. Bye.
It's hot, my friend. I'm melting.
Da, da. That was good.
Yeah.
That was good. Everybody I talk to comes from a different perspective. Everyone I've talked to has been passionate. Everybody I talk to takes me off in a different direction. It's never been the same.
That's good. That's what you want.
Yeah.
I'm gonna roll.